to Minds on a Mission, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music / Audible, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Deezer, Podbean, and Buzzsprout. I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator, and tonight's guest is the lovely Laurel Ordoñez. Woo! See, I'm going to figure out the sound effects one day.
We'll make our own applause. We'll make our own applause sound effects.
Wait, I want to see. I'm going to try it. Just entertain me for 1 second. Can you hear this?
No.
No? You can hear it? Oh, no. Well, I got to figure that out. It was playing, but I don't know. Well, just know I heard it. It was amazing. It was like, woo!
Awesome.
How was your day today?
Is that sigh? Like,
oh no, that's like
that's like a.
That was me getting worked up, like because the high energy, and I'm like, I need to breathe because I couldn't breathe.
No, for me, it was like a big, like extended sigh over here. Life has been lifing, but I'm really happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this. I know we booked it quite some time ago, and so I thank you so much for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. Also, I'm sorry that sigh didn't mean to be.
You're good. You're good.
I get like so worked up, like the intro. I feel like it's like so long. I'm like, and then I feel like I can't breathe. So I was like, like breathe.
So I also host a podcast, and your intro is perfect. I still haven't perfected my intro.
Oh, thank you. How does your intro go? I need to check your podcast out, but I haven't seen it.
So I mean, I have just like a video intro with the sound that plays before everyone, but I've played around with, so I did 4 episodes. We batch record, and so we do 4 episodes in a day. And so what I did is my first round, because I'm with a new studio, I did a customized intro for every single guest. And then the last time I was in, I just started as, hey, welcome to the Boss Too Hard podcast. I'm so happy you're here. And then I introduced my guest, and we usually know each other. And so I kind of transition with a like, wow, it's been so long since we talked, or how was that thing going? Or as simple as, I'm so happy to have you here. Just, it's been, I'm not quite sure which one feels right yet.
I get that. I kind of played around too, and like with the video intro, it was like the same for me, where I try to do it like specialized to each episode. Yeah. And then I ended up like, before I finally like changed it to just be like a generalized thing, I kept playing like the wrong ones. And so I finally was like, I'm just gonna scrap this idea because it's getting a little too crazy for me. So I decided to just kind of fix it and just be like a generalized thing. But
yeah, in mine, so we're the Boss Too Hard podcast, where we dive deep into the turbulent waves of entrepreneurship. Like, but when you're on like your 4th episode and you've talked for like 4 hours straight, turbulent and entrepreneurship come out of my mouth all different ways. So, yeah, it was the last episode I filmed. My producer, he's like, you didn't say entrepreneurship, you said entrepreneur with a T at the end. I was like, oh, let's re-record that. So yeah, it's at the end of the day, we're all human. And I think one of the reasons why podcasts have done so well is that they've taken that element of talk show that so many people used to love. Think about it, the Oprahs, the Maury's, and the Sally Jesse Raphael, and all of them. And it's made it really attainable for everyone to kind of have a voice and a platform, but also extremely authentic, and just to kind of approach things how you want. I really have fallen in love with the podcast world.
Me too, and I agree. Oh, sorry, my notifications are on. Turn that off. So, Yeah, I agree with that. I really like podcasts and too it's like it kind of just feels like you said like talk shows where it just feels like you're very like at home and just kind of like getting to know the person like more in depth. So I agree with that. So normally at the beginning I usually like to ask, which I'm going to, is for those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, my name is Laurel Ordoñez. My company is based out of Sanford, Florida, which is right outside of Orlando. So we're in Central Florida, but we serve companies across the nation. I own Queenly Consulting, and we are a marketing and consulting firm. And so my heart is really with working with entrepreneurs and corporations. And I know that seems like such opposite sides of the perspective. But my background is in experiential marketing. And so, what I really love doing is taking all of the marketing strategies that your big businesses use to grow and breaking them down so that your small business, your entrepreneur, are able to leverage them as well to experience growth. And so, we do that through fractional leadership. Um, Activation. So I come in as either a fractional chief marketing officer or a fractional director of marketing, depending on the size of your team and who I'm reporting to. And then we also do that with our entrepreneurs through our business growth boot camp, which is a digital course that we betaed last year and then we soft launched it this year. And it's been really cool to get all of my knowledge out into a course that kind of allows me to clone myself. Um, I started Queenly in 2021, August of 2021. And I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I did a lot of one on one coaching. And I think out of everything that I do, that probably fills my cup as a business owner the most. And so I needed to find a way over this past year to still find space to make that happen while also giving myself or allowing myself to still have the capacity to lead at a high level within the different organizations that I serve.
I love that. And it sounds like you've really accomplished a lot in your life, and I would love to kind of unpack that. But my favorite thing to do is before we get to that, because now we know where you are now,
Yeah.
and we hear a little bit how you got in there. But I would love to kind of go back to the beginning and talk about like what your childhood was like.
Okay. All right. We can do this.
Okay.
Um, I grew up in Arizona, was raised by a single mom. Um, I Life was, from what I can remember, it was okay. I think we all walk through things with our parents. We forget that the when our parents are raising us, it's the first time that they're being parents too. And so, in retrospect, you look at things, and you have a lot more grace and forgiveness. I found God when I was 9 years old, and that was a big part. I was baptized on my ninth birthday. Some things happened. My mom became disabled. We moved from Arizona to Minnesota. So I went from big city, um, bigger public school, established friends, was always pretty smart, was in, advanced classes, different things like that. Always smart, never athletic. Just want to add that in there. Um, but our house that we lived in when we were in Arizona, as I was entering the ninth grade, it was being sold, and my mom was not in a position to purchase it. And so we moved to Minnesota to be closer, well, to live with my grandfather and to be closer to him. Like I said, went from a big city to a very small city, um, and quickly found myself getting into trouble, getting, involved with the wrong crowds, and kind of, sorry, my son is interrupting us. Bye. um,
Whatever.
Finding, I got in trouble. Unfortunately, during that time period, during my high school years, my mom fell pretty deep into addiction because of her disability. her back problems. She got really, really dependent on prescription pain medications and anti-anxiety pills. And so a lot of what I remember in high school was, sometimes it's hard to go back and think about. I've I spent a lot of time needing guidance but not having it. I was always, like I said, always smart, got good grades. But when it came to when it came to what I was doing outside of school, I was really just kind of looking for love in a lot of the wrong places, trying to find belonging in different spaces that I didn't belong in. Um, and so it was interesting because, and anything goes, right? I'm not going to cuss or anything, but like, do you want the authentic story?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was 16, I tried to commit suicide. Um, and I found myself Baker acted. And the reality was that things were just really dark. And so I went back to high school, and decided that if I was going to be successful in my high school career, I was going to need to get out of that space. And so my junior year in high school, I actually went full time college. And so I was attending our local community college full time, earning my college credits. Um, and, of course, hanging out with kids that were much older than me, partying a lot. And the spring of my junior year, I got pregnant. And so I got pregnant when I was 17, had my oldest son right after my 18th birthday. So my birthday is in October. I had him in December. Um, Becoming a mom so young really changed a lot for me. And I really believe that he is my biggest blessing because he really changed the trajectory of what life could have looked like for me. I don't really know like what decisions I would have made or where I would be, without him coming into my life. So of course, being young, having a new baby, all these different things, I ended up dropping out of high school and I worked for a little while, got pregnant with my second son. Um, my my boyfriend at the time was extremely abusive. I finally got the courage to leave him, and once again slipped into a really dark place. At that point in time, I called my doctor and I told her, like, I'm in a really dark space. Here are some of the things I'm thinking about. And I was Baker acted a second time. But during that time, I had got in a course of like 3 days, I received a letter in the mail that I had passed my GED with almost a perfect score, which is like so like me. And then I also got the results to my FAFSA, which basically told me that I would be able to go to college for free. And so that was my, I guess, my new beginning. It was my sign from God that like he had my back. And even though that I had been really like far away, right? And making a lot of decisions without contemplating like who I was in Christ. Um, it was a journey that I had to go on. And that was really kind of how I made my way back. And so that started, um, it was a new chapter. It almost feels like it was a completely new book, right? So I started college. I had my two sons. As soon as my son was old enough, I got a job. I went back to school. I initially went to school for psychology. And then I realized that I was going to have to get a doctorate in order to really do something impactful with that. And then so I switched to social work. And then I was about halfway through my social work degree. when it was just a lot of writing papers and a lot of research. And I realized that I could have impact in the world without having to be as invasive as social workers can be in people's lives. And so at that time, I was working at a hotel and I loved my job. I absolutely loved working in the hotel industry. I loved the hospitality industry. So for the third time, I shifted my degree and I ended up graduating with a bachelor's in hospitality management. And so that kind of started my professional career. During that time frame, I met my now husband. We got married. I moved to Florida. Um, I worked with Chase for a little while, and then I shifted from Chase and I worked in tech. And I was the relationship manager for a startup tech firm and sold iPhones and iMacs. I did, high value electronics across the country. There's a huge market for used electronics outside of the United States. And so I did that, but it was time to go. And I remember there was a job on LinkedIn. I'd been applying on jobs on LinkedIn and not getting any um any responses, like no calls. I was like, dang, like have I lost my mojo? Like I'm valuable. Like what the heck is going on? Until I got a call from an experiential marketing firm based out of Tampa Bay. I went down to Tampa for the interview. And so I kind of like my W-2 job in 2018. And I entered this new company as a relationship manager. And when I left the company, I was VP of business development. And so what I learned while working for them was that there was a huge gap in what was available for small businesses from a growth and marketing perspective. A lot of business owners did not go into business because they're great marketers. They love what they're doing, whether that's making candles or cooking meals or running their boutique or serving their clients, whatever that may look like. But so many of them don't have the hat of marketer. And so there was this big gap in being able to provide services for small businesses that were actually affordable. Not every company has a $5,000 to $8,000 budget a month to hire a marketing firm to help grow their company. And so I left with $3,000 in the bank, and started my own business. And I gave myself until I'm like, okay, look, God, like I have until January to make X amount of money. And if by January, I think it was $3,000. Like if by January I am not making $3,000 a month, I'm gonna have to get a job. So you've got to help me figure this out. And so I my first actually I was just talking about this in my podcast. We did a social media coaching program because back in 2021 we were coming out of the pandemic that had really shifted what social media looked like and how businesses were going to use it. And so because I had lived in that space with event marketing and helping small businesses position their events online, um, I started a social media course for small businesses, and it was a one-on-one coaching program. But that quickly evolved to where I had my first retainer client, which that was $2,500 a month. And then not long after that, I closed my first $9,000 contract for an internal marketing strategy for a company. And so it was slowly just started to all come together.
Wow.
Oh,
That
and
was
during that time frame, I went back to school and got my master's in public relations.
See, I knew you've accomplished so much, girl. Wow. Um, I had a lot of thoughts during that and a lot of things that I felt like I resonated with, so I guess I'll kind of just list off those things. But you said your mom was a single mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my first thought. My mom was too as well, and my parents, they divorced when I was 3, so I resonate with that because my mom, throughout the majority of my life, um well, she had some boyfriends here and there, but, like, I didn't feel like I had that, like, set father figure, and I always felt like it was just my mom was there to rely on, and I didn't really have that, so when you were saying that, I was like, I really, resonated with that, and and then it also made me think when you were talking about, looking for, like, um kind of like attention in different places just because, like, I resonate with that in the sense of, like, for me, I always said, like, I felt like because I didn't have that father figure, I
Mhm.
was looking for that attention that I was lacking in that way in other areas, so I resonated with that as well, and can definitely understand what that feels like. I'm trying to think, um, yeah, that's really awesome that you've come this far, and I think too, I've heard some people say too, it's that when you're in, like, such a dark place, like, having someone which for you was your son, and then having your other son, like, really was something that made you realize, like, "Oh, I can do this," and, like, "I have a lot that I can accomplish," and, like, "This is the life that I wanna live." Like, I think that was really amazing.
I think that I I've come to realize, and in the past year, I've really done some hard work and looked at, some spaces in my life and just looking back and thinking through some decisions I made. And I really don't think there's anything more important than the family unit. When you don't have a strong family unit, and a strong family unit doesn't necessarily mean there's a mom and a dad in the house, right? A strong family unit can be a really amazing dad, a great grandma, and a cool aunt, and a neighbor that checks up on you, right? Because family, especially now, like family looks very different than it did 40, 50 years ago. Um, and so I think that as you grow and you get older and you mature, without having that strong family unit, I think sometimes your identity kind of gets lost, or you're looking for spaces to be nurtured. You're looking for guidance. I know in my situation, I really wanted to do the right thing. I really wanted to make good choices, but I was also like 15, 16-year-old girl with, lizard brain. That frontal lobe isn't completely developed. And so, I remember knowing that I wanted to do more and feeling like I was made for more. My my sophomore, I think my freshman and sophomore year, my dreams were to go to Georgetown and study political science and get a law degree. I wanted to be a change maker of some sort, right? And what better way to do that than at the legislative level? But at the same time, I felt that like there was no one pushing me to do good. And when I looked around me, there was really no one doing good around me either. And so it was almost, I think at times it was like, well, what's the point? And so as I've grown and become an adult and, have 3 sons, and so now 17, 16, and 10, they're all amazing. I love my boys. Um, but having a strong family unit and ensuring, they have a strong sense of self and a really solid support system, I think is probably one of the biggest gifts that I can give them as they enter adulthood and become men.
Right. And like you said, it doesn't have to be like a mom and a dad, but I feel like for me, like I didn't really struggle with like my mom having addiction, but my brother has struggled with addiction for a long time, so I have like seen that hands on. And then also like my mom was always working. She had 2 or 3 jobs, and, like, she genuinely was trying, but, I mean, she's not able to be there as much as she could because she has to be both roles. She
Yeah.
has to be the provider and the caretaker, and so kind of hard when, like, my mom's always been there for me, but it's hard to get that attention you would get, you know what I mean? Because when you're younger, it's like you want to be able to have that attention from your parents and to be able to look up to someone, and, like, I looked up to her, but I couldn't really get that quality time that I should have been able to because she, like I said, had to be both roles and worked all the time, so
Yeah.
it was like I was looking for that in other places, and it's like I look back on it and realize, like, a lot of things I did that, like, that I really wouldn't, like, say I'm proud of, like, things that
Mhm.
definitely, like, shaped me as a person, but I'm like, "Oh, like, I wish I didn't do that," but I
I
understand
could
it.
have done without that decision.
Right, but I'm like, but now I understand it. I understand the mindset of why I was looking for attention in different places because I wasn't getting it from, where I wanted it, so
Yeah, yeah. The role of a mother and a father in a child's life, both daughters and sons, is so important. The I always I make this joke all the time. I didn't have a relationship with my dad, but I did have a relationship with my grandfather, and I love my grandfather a lot. He was a cranky old man, like old timer, smoked cigars, drank scotch, like, but I loved him and he loved me. And so they say like fathers fathers really shape what men their daughters pursue. And so I always joke around, and I'm like, well, most girls grow up and marry their dads. I grew up and married my grandfather.
right. That makes sense. Then I
Yeah,
hmm, then I got a place I get that.
yeah.
Like, in the sense of, like, what you and also too, like, we're talking about, like, the self-worth and stuff, like, I that's something I've talked about too is, like, how you treat or what is it that I say? How you allow other people to treat you is how you treat yourself, which is, like, kind of like, one of my sayings that's kinda, like, similar to that, but, like, versus, like, men that you date, like, they're similar too.
Yeah,
But that's definitely something that, one of my, like, little things, but
I totally agree with it too. I think that the amount of self to call it self-love, right? And what you value about yourself really dictates kind of what your relationships look like and what you will tolerate and what boundaries you set within within spaces.
I agree. There's Yeah, and that's something, like, I've worked on too a lot of, like, self-worth, and that's why I said, like, I've had to, like, look back on situations to, like, realize, like, how I've treated myself, and it's, like, a reflection of, like, how I've felt about certain things that's happened in my life.
Mhm.
And so that's definitely something I've worked a lot on because for the longest time, like, I feel like I wasn't even comfortable with, like, being by myself. Like, I always needed to be around other people or, like, trying to, like, fill a void that I just didn't have in myself.
Well,
If
so
that
I think that's where we underestimate the power of mentorship, right? And so we talk about, I said, hey, it could be a grandma, a dad, an aunt, or a neighbor, or things like that. Um, and I think we underestimate the power of people who are not related to us by blood, who have an impact on our lives. Whether I think everybody growing up has that teacher that really made an impact on them or cared about them, or it's a youth leader, or it's a really close friend's mom, or maybe it's an older sister or something like that who had the ability to speak words of life over you and get you through tough situations in the best way that they knew how, right?
Right. And I feel like too I've had, like, and it's also, like, hard because I talked about this recently, I think with, like, my grandma, because I like to talk with my grandma about, like, life and, like, things that, like, I've just kind of evolved from, and so I think I was talking about, um, how it felt like during high school and stuff, like, I really struggled and, like, I was similar, I never really attempted, but, like, I was really depressed and, like, I would tell my mom, like, I wanna kill myself, like, I
Yeah.
was very much at a low point, and I was talking with my grandma, like, it felt like I had no one, and my grandma was saying, like, "Well, you had me and, like, your mom, like, we would." But the thing I was telling her, I was like, "It's kind of hard where there are those, like, people that in the background that are there, but when you're surrounded by so much negativity, it's, like, hard to hear those people." Like, it just feels like there's no one because your inner circle, like, who you're around the most, which was, like, my dad and my stepmom and stuff, people that I felt like really didn't support me because I had to live with my dad for a while,
Mhm.
from situations, and I spent my whole life living with my mom, so living with my dad was, like, really hard for me. And so it's like, at that time, it didn't even though I knew that they were there, like, to support me, it felt like I had no one. And so it's hard too because it's like just realizing, like, certain situations you're in, like, may not be the best for you and kind of sometimes you're stuck in a situation, you have to do it or, like, you know what I mean? But I realized once I moved out, like, I felt so much better and, like, I felt like I was actually able to receive that energy that, like, my mom and my grandmother were trying to give me because I was away from that negative space.
Right? Like, you don't know what you've got till it's gone almost.
Right. But it's like being able to remove myself from it, it was like, "Okay, there are people that, like" you know what I mean? But it's hard to see that sometimes, which
Yeah. I think as a parent, one of the things that I have learned, and I've been this person for other parents, and other parents have been it for me. But I truly think it does take a village to raise a child, especially during the high school years. You see all those movies where like the high school years are like so much fun and there's this and there's that. I don't know what world those people were living in, but high school sucked. Like there's no other way to put it. High school sucked. Um, but scientifically, so one of my clients, they are a network of residential homes for troubled teens. And so we do a lot of parenting workshops from a education and preventative space, right? And so we work with he's one of the leading counselors in the nation. His name is Dwight Bain. Has a lot of really great information, but scientifically, it's proven that teenagers' brains are built to start tuning out the parent's voice at about the age of 13. And so when you think about it, when you stopped kind of listening to your parents, you stopped like thinking that what they said that were right, or it was hard to remove yourself from the negativity. The reality is that your brain was searching for different voices to speak to you. Like it was searching biologically for different perspectives, um, because that's the way we were wired. And so to have a group of people around you that you can trust with your child, or that as a young adult that you can trust, is so incredibly important.
that's really cool, I didn't know that. That makes sense too, because it's like, I don't know, like you said, I feel like even if, like, my parents were, like, telling me something and, like, it was generally for the interest, it's like you're just automatically, like, wanna be like, "No, you're not right," like, I don't and I feel like that was definitely, like, what I would think during high school, but I it's very different because it was more of, like, my mom's always tried to be that person, like, try to help me and stuff, and it just felt like that kind of rebellious stage where it's like, "Nope, I'm not gonna listen to you. You don't know what you're talking about."
It was natural. It was totally wired, and that was exactly what you were supposed to do.
That makes sense, but I feel like when
You
you go through that and then you realize that, like, that person, like, was actually there for you, it's like you feel so grateful and you're like, "I'm so sorry I put you through that."
Yeah, it's all retrospect, right? It's like hindsight is 2020. I wish I would have known this when, or I could have known it. I just didn't listen to it. I think it's that phenomenon that like coaches, it's very hard to coach your own child. Like you, as all my boys play sports, and my husband will tell my kids to do something, and they won't listen to him, or they'll discredit it. And another coach will tell them to do the same exact thing, and it's like the best thing that they've ever heard.
Yeah, that happens, and like you said, it's that thing of, like, they're automatically just like, "Nope, you're wrong."
Yeah, mom and dad, they're not cool. One of the I think one of the the most I'm not I don't know exactly how I want to phrase this. But I think one of the spaces that I enjoy being in the most, I served at a very high level at a local church for a while. And so I was their youth coordinator, and I had the opportunity to pour into a lot of young women. And I tell them, I'm like, look, I was always very real, always very authentic with them. So it was very easy for me to build trust because they knew like Miss Laurel wasn't, you know, blowing smoke or, whatever. Like it was just, I was real with them and I was honest. But one of the greatest opportunities was for me to share bits and pieces of my story and be able to tell them, like, hey, like, I believe it or not, if you're walking through it, I have probably walked through it. I did a lot of things that I should have done, experienced a lot of things way too early in life. So I promise you can talk to me about it and I will likely understand where you're coming from. And so even now, like there are young women that I started mentoring like in the fifth, sixth grade that have now graduated for high school, and I still get to be a part of their lives.
That's awesome. You get to build connections and like yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people like even me. I'm 21, so I guess you'd say I'm still young, but it's weird because I almost feel old. Like I have a couple friends that are like seniors in high schools, and I'm like I feel like I'm so old, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Because I've graduated 3 years ago. Like it feels like such a long time." But it's like
I I knew you were young, but I didn't think you were that young.
yeah, I'm only 21, and it's I feel like I've lived like a long life. I always say I feel like I've lived a couple lives at least. Like everything I've experienced, I feel like there's just like so many different phases in my life that
Yeah.
I've experienced. It's like crazy because like some people, it's like they'll have. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean
No, go ahead. Some people
I
will.
feel like some people, like, they'll have, like I don't know. There's some people that have, like, a traditional life kinda where you have both parents and you grow up and, like, you know what I mean? And for me, I'm like, I didn't start off with that. My parents were divorced when I was young, and then I lived in Maine until I was 8, and, a lot of things happened then, and then lived in California for 5 years, and I've
Oh, fun.
experienced a lot of stuff there, a lot of unfortunate things. I was homeless a lot of the time there. So and then living with my dad, which I never lived with my dad, and I lived with my dad 13 to 18. So it's like I've already lived so many different lives all that point, and then
Yeah,
I've been on my own since a couple months after I graduated, I moved out, and so I'm like, I've been out October yeah, it's October, so 3 years I've been on my own, like, with my fiancé, and
yeah.
it's a lot.
Lived a lot of life, which my grandma would say you're an old soul. Because I tell you what, not a lot of people come out of that, like experiencing all the things that you've experienced and come out of it whole enough. Because none of us are really whole, right? We've all got a little bit of brokenness that we're walking through. But like to be focused and willing to fail and creating a safe place for yourself that if you do fail, it's okay, that you'll get back up at such a young age is so powerful. Like just in getting to know you before we started the call, just knowing that you have like the different jobs, like the side hustles, you want to own businesses, like the fact that you've already got the ball rolling on these things is like you're setting yourself up for success.
Thank you, and I wanna tell you a crazy thing. I still feel like I'm, like, behind, which is weird. Like, I'm like, "Oh, I'm 21," but I, like, have such I'm, like, very hard on myself, which can be a good and a bad thing because I
Yeah,
have really high expectations, so when I don't meet them, I'm like, "Oh, you're bad," or and trying to, like, get out of that mindset of, like, beating myself up, but I'm also like, I know that it's what keeps me going because I know that I have these high expectations. I'm like, no, you can't settle for less. Like, you have to get there. Just have to keep doing it. So it's like, it's good, but it's bad because again, it gets in the like, oh, I didn't do this or do that. So then I get like annoyed with myself. But I just tell myself, it's today. There's always tomorrow. I'm gonna get back up tomorrow, start again, try again, and just like repeat, like
yeah.
keep trying.
There's a couple things. So from one high achiever to another, you have to stop to celebrate the wins. Because if you don't stop to celebrate even the little wins, even if you didn't hit the bar like as high as you wanted to, you still need to celebrate it. Because what happens is when you are a high achiever and you are, I'm going to say, hypercritical on yourself, you consistently move the bar and it's never quite enough.
Mm.
And so the increasing height of the bar plus the negative self-talk that comes to that when you don't meet your own expectation becomes a really vicious cycle of unhealthiness within yourself. um, I actually just recorded a podcast episode and I talked about this in my in the business growth boot camp in our community group, but the power of affirmations. And I actually have a guide. I should have sent it to you. I'll send it to you afterwards, but I have a guide that's how to write affirmations, and it talks about how to identify those negative thought patterns and how to combat them and replace them with positive thinking. It takes the idea of taking like an affirmation and, repeating it to a new level, because so many of us will see something and be like, "Oh, that connects with me," and using someone else's affirmation instead of really thinking about who you are and what you're walking through and writing your own. But you got to take some time to celebrate those wins, especially get in the habit of doing that now while you're young, because when you get my age, I'm 36, like you will it's a really hard habit to break.
Right. And I have worked quite a bit on it because like when I first started going through like my journey of like, oh, like I know I want to do more because I always felt like growing up like I was meant for more, but it kind of with everything in my life just took me a long time to kind of like be like, okay, so what now? So like when I graduated, because most people were like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna do this. And like I didn't know, I had no idea. I just knew I had to get out of living with my dad. I just couldn't stand living there anymore. So I kind of jumped the gun. Me and my fiance, we just were like, well, we found a place. Like, luckily, we were very fortunate to like have a boss who like owned apartment buildings, and so we had a connection. So,
Yeah.
so we were able to move out, and then I kind of was struggled with stuff. I wouldn't say I really had an addiction, but I did struggle with like medical marijuana use, like kind of being reliant on it and um kind of using it to fill a void and so and I used to like vape. I've thankfully been 2 years since I quit vaping. So it was kind of a thing where I wouldn't say I was addicted, but it was something where it was very socially acceptable. Like the people that I hung out with, it was just kind of like what they would do, and I kind of just very much was someone like trying to fit in. And so finally I just like hit a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I feel like I'm just killing myself, like doing these things that like aren't good for me. And so that was when I finally like started like my entrepreneur journey and like really being like, okay, what am I gonna do? Like I know I have a big purpose and like I want to help a lot of people, but I don't know. So I spent a lot of time like kind of just like looking into different things. At one point I was like maybe life insurance, but I don't know.
Don't do life insurance, girl. Don't do life insurance.
And it was like this whole thing, and it took me a while, and I finally realized like one of my biggest passions like real estate investing. And so I kind of took a while to get there, and then my focus has been now like more so building up the money aspect because like you do have to have money to invest into real estate. So I'm kind of just doing that and working on learning certain things like sales and marketing and just working on building up my skills right now. But yeah, a lot at the beginning I was way worse, like, hard on myself, like, I would wallow for, like, a couple weeks or a month of just, like, in negative feelings, and it was a spiral of, like, that, then I would pick myself back up, and I feel like I'd be doing amazing, and then, like, one little thing, like, would just set me off, like, I felt like it just crumbled and, like, I was caving in, and
Yeah.
so I really worked a lot on having more grace and kind of just and that's why I take it of the, like, day by day feeling of just like, "Okay, maybe, I could have done better at this," or, maybe I'm a little upset that I didn't do this, but I'm gonna try again tomorrow and just trying
Mhm.
not to So, like, my pickup time, I've made it, like, so much shorter. Like, I'll have a little bit of time in a day where maybe I'll have be like, "Oh, you're not doing fast enough," or whatever, and then I kinda just tell myself, I'm like, "Just get over it." Like, just stop allowing yourself to think that and just, like, get over it and
Yeah,
keep going, keep pushing, and so that's kinda where I'm at, and I kind of, like to listen to music and try to hype myself up, like,
yeah, yeah. What's your favorite hype song?
hype song?
Yeah.
Well, hype song? I don't know, I have a lot. I also listen to, like, a lot of different music. I listen to, like, rap or, like, hip hop. I really like Sabrina Carpenter, I don't know if you know who she is, but I like
Who
her
oh,
music.
Sabrina Carpenter?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I love Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah, so she's like I love her music and she's, like, one of them I'll listen to, but I
Yeah,
kinda just put on music that, like, makes me feel upbeat and I'm happy and I feel like I'm in, like, my, like, hot I call it, like, hot girl energy, but that's just,
yeah,
like
yeah. The hot girl energy is real, and if you need
yeah.
to feel hot girl energy, Sabrina Carpenter is where to feel it. I hadn't listened. I heard a song on the radio or whatever, and it was her. And I think of Sabrina Carpenter as Disney Channel, right? And I'm
Yeah,
listening, I'm like, oh my God, this is spicy. Like, what has she been up to?
she
um,
has a song that, like, I like, but I'm like, I don't know, but I like a lot of her songs, but what I've been listening to lately, again, not an appropriate song, but it's called Bed Chem, and she's just talking about her boyfriend, Barry Keoghan, and it, like, the whole time, like,
I know
talking
the song. It's a really
yeah,
good song.
yeah, so I've been listening to that lately, like, that's one of my pick-me-up songs, I'm just, like, dancing to it.
So I'm the same way. I have a very eclectic love for music. I grew up listening to a lot of different music. I played music. And so depending on the mood I'm in, it's can be it can range all over the place. But I'm really loving Big X the Plug right now. Um
It's
and
called what?
so Big X the Plug,
I'll have to check that out. I haven't heard that.
yeah,
What kind
it's
of
hip hop.
genre is it? Pop?
Hip hop, yeah, rap. But it's very I think it's so listening to rap, you kind of like feel the different vibes. Like West Coast rap has its own vibe. Texas rap is like that down, like is totally a different vibe from like down south, like Cash Money. You know, like you had like Juvenile and um, Young Money Millionaires and all that. Like they had a vibe, and then you have like kind of like New York up like yeah. Anyways, everybody has a different vibe. And Big X the Plug is definitely that Texas vibe. I'm waiting for something chopped and screwed to come out any day now. But yeah, I like Big X the Plug. Cardi B is always a good one. Um,
Megan Thee Stallion, do you like Megan?
um, yes, ish. I'm
She's
more
got
Cardi.
she's got a lot of good songs, but there's a song again, none of these I listen to probably are
Please
appropriate,
do not listen to these music suggestions with your children.
yeah, but
Yeah,
there's a song called Plan B by Megan Thee Stallion, but I like it because she's kinda just talking about, like, how she does not care what a man thinks, she's like, "Imma do me, and, like, you're not gonna treat me wrong,"
yeah,
and so I've been, like, feeling that song lately, I'm just like, "Ooh."
yeah, yeah. So I go from like hip hop, so we go to like Big X the Plug to um like Cardi B to Morgan Wallen to Sabrina Carpenter to Maverick City Music. We just kind of make our rounds. Oh, some Slipknot. Today at the gym, I was listening to Slipknot. Um, I think Knotfest was this weekend or last weekend in Iowa. Like that's huge. I listened to a lot of metal growing up. I played bass guitar. So
I've listened to I wouldn't say I listen anywhere near as much, like, I would say mainly it's, like, kind of, pop, like, I do like a lot of pop, like Dua Lipa or, but it's, like, certain songs, and it's usually too, it's, like, the trendier songs, but that's because 'cause they're so catchy and they, like, get in your head, and I'm like, "Yes."
yeah,
And then I would say, kind of like rap, but mainly like female rappers aside like Megan Thee Stallion and stuff. I really like her. And then Glorilla. I don't know if you've heard her, but she's another one. They're more like yeah, they're like Cardi, but I feel like they're a little more. what would you call it? Vulgar, like with with like what they talk about, but
All I know is like the women rappers are far more vulgar than the male rappers these days. Like it's the script has officially flipped.
yeah, and you can there's certain things I know that's gonna be talked about, which I'm not gonna say that, but you already know, like Cardi B, what stuff she talks about, it's like very similar, but they're like
Yeah.
vulgar, like
Yeah, I think I try to stay away from, like, the WAPs and things like that, but, like, Up, like, I really like Up or Through Your Phone. That's a
oh
good
yeah.
one. So yeah, I mean, I think music, I actually look back at times of my life, um, and I define them by the music I was listening to. One day I was in work and there was a guy, he was listening to T.I. Um, and I was like, "Is that whatever the song was?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Dang, that's old." And he's like, "How old?" I'm like, 2006, because I was thinking, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I was listening to that. I was driving this car." So I really think that there is an aspect of like having a soundtrack to your life, because music, it just hits different parts of your brain and speaks to you at different times of your life. And so yeah, I love music, all kinds. So I will have to I'll in my alone time tomorrow, when the kids have gone to school, I'll listen to some Megan the Stallion. And did Savage, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well,
Yeah, she has good ones. That's why I said too, the Plan B one. It yeah, it's vulgar, but it's like I
you've
don't know.
been
I love too like some of her songs really the way she talks about things. It's like you're almost like wow, like because she'll talk about relationships, kind of like Cardi B, but like you know what I mean. And then that's why I like that song because she's like basically talking about this guy like screwed her over, and she's like, I don't care, I don't need men. Like that's
yeah,
kind of like the vibe of the song. So I'm like, I like it though, but.
yeah.
It is, yeah, if you listen to it tomorrow, you'll definitely know what I mean by the vulgar part, it's, like,
Got
almost
it, got it.
um,
I will follow up with my rating.
I love early 2000s too, early 2000s music, I love it, like, Kesha and Usher and Pitbull, like, the
Have you ever hold on,
oh, good, I hear my mouth.
have you ever heard Kesha's song "Grow a Pair"?
No,
Okay, listen to
I
that. I'll
haven't.
listen to Plan B, and you're gonna listen to "Grow a Pair."
Okay, and also too, I like some music or, like, I like some emo music too, like Pierce the Veil is like one of my favorite bands, and it's the only band I've ever seen or only concert I've ever been to is a Pierce the Veil. So I don't know if you've heard them, but they're like,
I have. You're, like, way too cool for me. I'm still in love with Fall Out Boy.
oh, Fall Out Boy. I've heard some of them too, but
I love
now
Fall Out
fun
Boy.
fact, guys. I know we're kind of well. So it says here we've been live for 53 minutes, but it's about to be 8 o'clock. So it's up to you. We can wrap it up now or just finish to the 1 hour, full 1 hour mark. Doesn't matter to me.
So, true story, my 17-year-old was trying out for the varsity basketball team, and he did message me and tell me he was ready to be picked up. So, mom duties do call, and I really wanna know whether he made the team or not. He didn't tell me that yet.
Okay, no worries. Do you just wanna, tell everyone real quick where they can find you, and then we'll wrap up and we'll be all done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the best place to, get a hold of me, I'm most active on Instagram. It's at queenlyconsulting.co. We're there every day. One thing that I did want to let you know, Samantha, I know that you are a budding entrepreneur, and I know that you've got a really broad audience that listens to your podcast. So what I did do is I created a special link for you. And so that business course that I was talking about is a business growth boot camp. And so it retails for $497. If you go to businessgrowthbootcamp.com, you'll see that that is a regular price. But for your listeners, anybody that is listening to this that's looking to kind of start or restart their business and trying to figure out how to really build that foundation, it's the perfect course, 12 modules. It's all videos from me plus some homework. And then we do have a Facebook group where I go live every week to personally answer questions and engage with you and teach on different topics that dive into the boot camp deeper. So with code mission, because this is Minds on a Mission podcast, you'll actually get $400 off that course and it'll be $97. And I know that you are a budding entrepreneur. So I'm actually going to email you a promo code so you can hop in for absolutely no cost. I really appreciate you giving me a platform today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm
Welcome.
definitely excited for that. I'm like, I have so much, and we can talk more about this because I know you gotta go. But yeah, I had some other thoughts too. So maybe we could sit down and chat sometime and kind of just go through stuff like on our own time.
Hey, relationships are the currency of business, and I am all about collaboration. So let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for sharing that. And you guys definitely use code mission to get $400 off the what? How'd you say that again? The course?
The retail price. So yeah.
No, I meant the course name.
Oh, the Business Growth Bootcamp.
The Business Growth Bootcamp. There you go. Sometimes I have goldfish brain, so I just
We all do.
and for the podcast, I know I mentioned in the beginning, but I like to mention at the end in case you missed it, where you can find us. You can find Minds on a Mission on pretty much everything, Facebook, Instagram, X. I will be creating a TikTok soon. I've got some feedback from you guys, and you want to see some clips from episodes, so I will be doing that very soon. And then you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I mean, the whole nines. I have it pretty much listed everywhere. I will have her links. I will have the code listed with the episode as well, so you guys can use that. And where you can find me on my personal page, Samantha Bailey on Facebook. And honestly, it's probably your best bet if you want to reach out to me. Reach out to me on Messenger. I use Messenger the most. And then also Instagram and TikTok is Sam B Daily Motivation. So just want to thank you so much for coming on tonight, Laurel. I really appreciated getting to know more about you and your story and everything you've accomplished. And I will see you guys on Friday for our next episode. So say bye to Laurel tonight. She's got to go, but we appreciate you guys coming on and watching with us tonight. Have a good night.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.